Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Coordinating Director for Humanities Team, and welcome to this 30-minute keynote interview with Marianne Williamson. If you've read any of Marianne Williamson's best-selling books or you've heard of her but have not had a chance to spend quality time with her, this is your opportunity. You will enjoy her riveting and profound insights about oneness and her vision for the Earth during these turbulent times. Don't worry about taking notes unless you want to. On the Global Oneness Day upgrade page, you can order MP3 links, transcripts, and CDs, and there is a $100 discount during this summit. As we get started, I'd like to thank all of the people participating today by phone, webcast, and replay. We're breaking all kinds of records in terms of participation on the ground and in the summit. We have an enormous audience who have registered for Global Oneness Day and who are participating live during this summit. I also want to thank the tens of thousands who are participating in on-the-ground programs, including in Monterrey, Mexico, church services around the world, the Global Rhythm Circle, and other programs. This is our 5th year celebrating Global Oneness Day, and in the first 4 years alone, over 100,000 registered to participate in the summit, in just the summit. Global Oneness Day has become our Earth Day for an awakened humanity. I'm going to introduce you to our special guest now. Marianne Williamson is an internationally acclaimed spiritual author and lecturer. 6 of her 10 books have been New York Times bestsellers. 4 of these have been #1 New York Times bestsellers. A Return to Love is considered a must-read of the new spirituality. Her newest book, A Year of Miracles, Daily Devotions and Reflections, was published in December 2013 by HarperCollins. She has been a popular guest on television programs such as Oprah, Larry King Live, Good Morning America, and Charlie Rose. Marianne is a native of Houston, Texas. In 1989, she founded Project Angel Food, a Meals on Wheels program that serves homebound people with AIDS in the Los Angeles area. Today, Project Angel Food serves over 1,000 people daily. Marianne also founded the Department of Peace Campaign, a grassroots campaign to establish a United States Department of Peace. And she serves on the board of directors of the Results Organization, working to end the worst ravages of hunger and poverty throughout the world. And welcome to Global Oneness Day, Marianne. Gosh, it's so great to have you with us.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
Well, let's go right into questions because our 30 minutes is precious, precious time. Marianne, I thought I'd start with one of your quotes. You said, just like a sunbeam can't separate itself from the sun and a wave can't separate itself from the ocean, we can't separate ourselves from one another. We are all part of a vastity of love, one indivisible divine mind, which is a beautiful statement, which seems to speak so much to Global Oneness Day. But I want to ask you the question, how can people feel into this truth if they have not experienced it personally? How can they access that?
Well, in the Course in Miracles, it says that enlightenment is a shift in body identification in self-identification from body to spirit. If I think of myself only as my mortal existence within a human body, and I only identify the truth of my being with my mortal, material, physical circumstances, then of course I cannot feel one with others. But if I recognize that beyond the level of the material is a universe more real, which is eternal, a quantum field in which the spirit in me is one with the spirit in you, in which the spirit within us does not stay within the confines of the body, then we realize that even though the physical senses would appear to prove that you and I are separate, on the level of the heart's knowing, which lies beyond physical senses, you and I are one. And enlightenment always begins as abstract intellectual construct. But as we practice the principles that emerge from that understanding, then they become visceral. And that is the point. So when you say, how do you get there? We get there through practice. Just intellectually knowing it is not enough. But if I realize, for instance, that since we are one, that means that what I do to you, I'm doing to myself, and I act that way, knowing, well, if I show more love to you, I will receive more love, and if I withhold love from you, I will experience love as withheld from me, then my practical experience will lead to conviction. That's really what all this is about. It's not just about belief, it's about experience. And the experience is what matters, and the experience can only be recognized and had if you actually apply the principles and see what the experience is.
Yes, and Marianne, I love so many of your quotes on Facebook and in your books and things. I just love your quotes. I love the way you look at the world. I love your outreach. I was mentioning in your introduction these things that you do that give practical application to oneness. And I just think it's terrific.
Thank you.
Let me turn to your own practices for remaining centered in the divine. Do you have and I'm turning to this because this whole inner journey aspect, this aspect of really being in touch with the divine in ourselves, I find, it's a struggle for a lot of people. So, are there practical applications that are part of your day or that you recommend to people?
Well, I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, so I do the workbook of the Course in Miracles. I also do transcendental meditation. I understand that spiritual exercise is like physical exercise. If you do it, it works. And if you don't do it, it doesn't work. And also, you never get to stop doing it. It's not like you see your body, all toned and your muscles the way you like them to look and then get to say, okay, I don't have to do it anymore. Meditation is the same way. On any given day that you do it, you get the benefits. And on any day that you don't do it, you don't get the benefits. And just as with physical exercise, you are working to make your muscles stronger so you can move, with spiritual exercise of meditation, inspirational reading, practice of forgiveness, and so forth, you are honing the internal musculature that enables you to be still inside. Physical muscles is so we can move. Spiritual muscles is so that we can be still. And that translates into non-reactiveness. It translates into impulse control. It translates into inner peace. It translates into our being able to live life from a source of mastery where we are responding to life rather than reacting, from a place where anger and defensiveness and all of those stress-based responses that come from this emotional sense of scarcity all the time begin to dissolve in the presence of our higher self, our true self. And that's how we ground ourselves in the higher self. It can't be done just intellectually, and that's what prayer and meditation and actually reading the things that, whatever it is, the book, whatever the path that you're about, particularly in the morning. You wake up in the morning and you wash your body because you don't want to take yesterday's dirt with you into the day. But if you wake up in the morning and you don't meditate and pray and do that work, regardless what your path is, then you're taking yesterday's stress into the world, into the day with you. And also with that, you're not just taking your own stress, you're taking the stress of people all over the world because you open your computer and you read the newspaper and all of that. So, I always say the era of data collection is over. We all know the principles by now. Now we're entering the era of application. Who have you not forgiven? Who have you not made amends to? What is the work you need to be reading, the meditation you need to be doing in order that the things that we all already know become incarnate within us? And that's, I think, the beat that we're all on right now.
I love that, entering the era of application where it's really getting right down to what things we're doing in our spirituality, from our beingness, what are we doing? I love that. I'm going to come back to that here in just one second, but I also loved, Marianne, what you shared just before that, this aspect of we give our body physical nourishment, what kind of spiritual nourishment?
Exactly. Nourishment and exercise. Yeah.
And so many share, well, I don't, I've got a job, I'm married, I've got kids, I have a dog. It's hard to squeeze in meditation, but that spiritual nourishment where we don't take the time to do inner journey, we can't really live in a place of connection with the divine, can we? Well, let me go to come back to this whole era of application. I love that. One of your quotes that I love says that what we become in oneness is so important. What we become in oneness, and as you look at the spheres of education and the environment and governance and all of the spheres of life, are there things that you'd invite people to consider as we work together to to manifest this world that's really living in oneness and that becomes awake from.
Well, just this morning I was reading an article about how years ago they had the preparation necessary to test the vaccine for Ebola. But because it was a disease that was only considered probable to emerge in very poor countries in Africa, it was not deemed financially a good idea for pharmaceutical companies to develop the vaccine. Now, this is not blaming the pharmaceutical companies, but it is saying that this is what you get when you only have a market-driven economy. So the Western world, if we saw something as more important than just an economic bottom line, and we made it a humanitarian bottom line, and particularly if we realized that what you do to one, you do to everyone, and what you withhold from anyone, you're withholding from everyone, then, for instance, the NIH, the National Institute of Health, they had at one point had money allocated for an Ebola vaccine, and that money was cut from the budget. Because, after all, what is it, just a bunch of poor people in Africa, quote unquote, who would be getting it? If you understand the law of oneness, you understand that if something is that dangerous for anyone, since we are all one, then that would be on our list of priorities. But once again, if we do not shift from an economic organizing principle to a humanitarian principle, then this will not change. And the whole point of an economic versus a humanitarian organizing principle is that an economic ordering principle is posited on separation. Now, I'm a free enterprise girl. I'm not saying we shouldn't have free enterprise. I think it's part of, what we all love and is unique and exciting and all of that. But you don't make money more important than love. You have perspective. And any serious spiritual path gives you that. There's no serious spiritual path that gives us a pass on addressing the suffering of other sentient beings. So to me, what's going on with Ebola is a perfect example. I think you see the same thing with the fact that ISIS is using American, billions of dollars of American military equipment are now in the hands of ISIL. I don't know, at what point do we get, I think some karma is going on here. So there are just so many ways in which our decisions, our social and economic policy decisions, are so devoid of any kind of transformational wisdom. And we're living at a time where it is impossible to separate your private experiences from the public experiences. Whatever is a public issue will one day get to your door. And it's very interesting to see what's happening because a lot of people now are having political awakenings because of issues that are private. An example, genetically modified food. People who weren't alive, to political issues at all are now going, well, I don't want my food supply corrupted. Well, where have you been? Where have you been while this massive matrix of, multinational corporate entities have been taking over the world? So all of a sudden you're upset about your genetically modified food. You're upset about your corruption of your food supply. So these are things that it's interesting because that's good because it's the portal through which you enter. But I think all of us are beginning to realize, when you talk about something like a virus or the corruption of our food supply, this isn't something you can just categorize as politics and think it's none of your business. For that matter, I think the reason these political issues matter is because we're on this earth to be conscious about everything. And you can't just be selectively conscious. I'm conscious about my body. I'm conscious about my food. I'm conscious about my relationships. If we're going to be conscious, then we need to be conscious everywhere. And these larger social and political issues and economic issues, we are coming to understand that, they say in France, if you don't do politics, politics will do you. So whether it's Ebola or national security involving something like ISIL or genetically modified foods, these things will begin to privately impact you on a individual level until you realize the invitation that we all have to address these things on a collective level. When we have problems in our own individual lives, the spiritual perspective is to see this is an invitation for me to become different. This is an invitation for me to become a person who, if I had been that person, this might not have happened or it wouldn't have been so bad, And if I become that person now, then number one, not only will I no longer conspire or create that problem, but I will become myself a transformational space in which the problem will more quickly heal. Now we're being offered that same invitation as a species. It, just like in our own personal growth spiritually, life is always saying, step it up. Act from your strength and not from your weakness. Act from your power, not from your disempowerment. Act from your healing, whole, beautiful place and not from your wound. That's all that spiritual growth is about. And now we're being given that same invitation collectively as a species, because seeing it only about a small group of people having an increase in their economic bottom line, and this huge social order that arises from that, has given us a world, whether you're looking at national security, ISIL, environmental damage, Ebola, where we have now manifest probability vectors for the next 20 years that are so grim as to represent the possibility of global catastrophe. And I think that enough of us waking up and just opening our minds, all healing, whether it's individual or collective, begins with an aha. And then you just have another aha and another aha. I think this is happening. I think that when I ran for Congress not long ago, our community, the higher consciousness community, was so good to me. And the support I received and the money that people, sent to support my campaign and the experiences I had on the campaign really confirmed for me, people are ready for this. People are ready. There's a critical mass of us. We want a critical mass of us. We want to have a more meaningful conversation with more transformational, meaningful, deeper conversation within the public realm. So I think that it's happening, but not a moment too soon, and I think we need to step it up.
I love, Marianne, I saw a video of you at the Wisdom 3.0 conference in the San Francisco Bay Area, and you were, I just love the courage you take to every audience that you speak to. There were technology executives in the audience, and you were sharing many of these perspectives, but going further, because you had moneyed, wealthy technology executives there, and you said, hey, let's put the money, let's lay some of this money out and get some of these problems solved. There's enormous wealth here in the Bay Area where technology is based. So I just want to thank you for being the change agent that you are, and for always having the courage to say it like it is and inspire people.
Well, Martin Luther King, I'm sorry.
I also just wanted to mention some of the themes that you were just touching on, the new bottom line for business, and bringing in GMOs and things. We're actually going to be talking about that specifically in a couple hours here during Global Oneness Day. We have a new bottom line for business panel. We're talking about, John Thomas is moderating that panel, and we'll be talking about the 4 Ps, with the 4th P being presence. And with presence, of course, just as you were sharing, it turns everything upside down. It's no longer, we don't have businesses that are based on profit. Profit's a byproduct. The business is focused on the sacred in life, the divine life that we nurture. And, of course, that's the direction the whole planet needs to go in. But wonderful to have business leaders involved in conversation about a new bottom line for business, and because businesses are, so to speak, the lead car on the train that's pulling our economy, our jobs, etc.
Well, I think we need to be very careful here. Do we need a new bottom line for business? Absolutely. However, it can't just be business. No amount of private charity can compensate for a basic lack of social justice. No business with a new bottom line is going to fix the mass incarceration issue. No business with a new bottom line is going to take on some of these larger issues that only governmental change can take on. So only from a romanticized vision do we think that a new bottom line in business will of itself fix everything. So as much as I support and exalt and celebrate all of that as much as anyone does, that has to be within a political context as well as a business context. Even when you just said that business drives the economy, of course it does, and we appreciate that. However, for us to be centered in our ethics, we want to remember that there are millions of people on this planet who are not themselves involved they're not to be left out. And that has to do with certain kinds of changes that make sure that business, in fact, itself, in serving the interests of business, cannot be the bottom line. That's really what's important. You said that business drives the economy. Yes, but that's different than whether or not it should drive the country.
Absolutely.
It should obviously drive the country, the economy, but it shouldn't drive the country because sometimes people need to be taken care of, particularly very young children. And business isn't going to fix that.
Yeah, let me just mention one of our other really strategic initiatives is called Oneness in the 12 Spheres of Life, and we have a leader come on once each month. And, of course, Marianne, you came on during the summer for the governance sphere. And business falls under the sphere called economics, so it's one of 12. And there are all of these others, infrastructure, education, relations, on, that are so critical. So, we use the 12 spheres that Barbara Marx Hubbard created for those Oneness and 12 Spheres of Life initiatives. So it is something that we have to come at from many different directions, and of course they're all related. The oneness is the thing at the center. But with our limited time, gosh, we only have 7 minutes, and I wish we had more time, Marianne, because this has been fascinating, just what we've already discussed. I wanted to bring in one other thing, if we could maybe spend 4 minutes and with this as you respond, and then if you could share a website also where people can go to follow your work. I wanted to reference another quote of yours. We can apply the principles of personal transformation to societal change. If a person has unlimited possibilities for greatness, then so do civilizations. For societies as well as individuals, we need to claim what we really want and work back from there. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Was that in my book, Healing the Soul of America, or just something I wrote during I don't know where that's from, but I like it too. And that is exactly what we're talking about here, that we need to apply the same principles. When it comes to our own individual lives and spiritual transformation, the whole thing is based on the idea that people can change and that our lives can go from limits to lack of limits. We as people can go from weak to strong. Our circumstances can radically change. That's what we stand on in the field of personal transformation. And as you just read, we now need to stand on that as a society. We have lost our sense of collective imagination. Dennis Kucinich once said we must challenge the belief that war is inevitable. We have to use our imagination and imagine a world in which 17,000 children do not starve every day. We need to imagine a world in which there aren't 1 billion people living on $1.25 and less a day. We need to imagine a world in which there is no war. And the fact that we are not filling our minds with the vision of possibility is making us more and more vulnerable to the collective behavior which keeps that possibility at bay.
Yes, so much that we, and now is the time. This is a theme that, of course, has been coming out again and again and again today, Global Oneness Day, that what Global Oneness Day is about is it's a spiritual activism day. It's a day where we're saying everybody needs to come down on the field now. There's no room for people to sit in the stands, and of course everybody makes their own choice. So this is not something that's being mandated, but there's an invitation for all of us to come down on the field, to all of us be involved, to do our own inner journey work, to create our own spiritual nourishment, and then to do the spiritual activism, get involved in the things in the community and world that move us. And because if we're all one, that means we have a whole new self-identification. It's the world around us, and we can't just sit idle when we have so many things that need our attention. So certainly we're touching on all of those themes in this conversation, Marianne. What site can people go to follow your work? And also,
Thank you so much.
Any final invitation, if you wanted to take a minute, any final thing you might want to share as we...
Sure, thank you. My site is Marianne.com, Marianne. I will start live streaming my weekly lectures on Monday, November 3rd. Also, for those who are interested in how all of these spiritual things apply politically, I will be doing my next Sister Giant conference in the spring of 2015, so I hope everyone will sign my e-list on Marianne.com so that they can find out about that. And my book, The Law of Divine Compensation on Work, Money, and Miracles, has just been published in paperback. So whatever I can contribute to somebody's journey, we've kind of got a lot of stuff out there, and if anybody feels that any of it is valuable to them, I hope that they will check it out on Marianne.com and partake of whatever value might be there for them. And I just thank you for the opportunity to be here in this really remarkable gathering that you're doing. You know, the Course in Miracles says that an idea grows stronger when it is shared. And that's why things like this are so important. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. Gosh, we're so grateful that you're making the time in your busy schedule to participate. And I didn't know about your newest book, Work on Divine Compensation.
Yeah, it's called The Law of Divine Compensation on Work, Money, and Miracles. And the idea is that whenever there is diminishment in the material world, that the infinity of spiritual substance will more than compensate for any lack, to the extent to which we keep our hearts open to the miracles that will naturally occur. You know, it's like in a GPS. If you take a wrong turn, the GPS will automatically recalibrate. And the universe is like that. It's self-correcting. So when we feel, oh, my God, I lost my job, or the economy is so down, we can, by keeping our consciousness in that larger field of possibility, attract not only the abundance that will compensate for the lack that occurred, but also then place ourselves in a larger place of reception of abundance. So anybody wants to know how these principles apply to that level of things, work, money, all of that, then that book is probably something that would be of value to you.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much, and we're going to now just transition to the next panel. I want to, though, just share again, Law of Divine Compensation is Marianne's new book, Marianne.com, she referenced, and she has a great Facebook page, too. You can like Marianne's Facebook page. So, Marianne, thank you so much for your profound, thoughtful, and inspiring conversation. Thank you for being the courageous person that you are.
Right back at you, Steve. What you do is a great contribution to all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I also want to thank my humanities team colleagues and partners who have worked so hard planning and producing Global Oneness Day. Finally, thank you to each of you who are participating in Global Oneness Day. I invite you to go to the Marianne Keynote event page on the Global Oneness Day site to share your comments, aha moments, and inspirations. We'll bring in some of those during the closing ceremony. One more invitation for listeners, I invite you to join in the conversation we're having here by sharing and using hashtag G1Day, that's capital G1, capital D-A-Y, on your social channels. That's Facebook and Twitter. Next up is a keynote interview with Dr. Larry Dossey. He's a key leader in healthcare and an important thought leader who is revolutionizing how we see ourselves in the world around us. He recently wrote a book called One Mind that I'll be talking to him about. Don't miss this exciting 30-minute interview. Before we go to the next program, we're going to enjoy a oneness moment and experience 10 seconds of silence so we may connect with the divine within and each other. Let's go ahead and begin our oneness moment now.